Hello, my name is Natalia and welcome to Body Abroad. Welcome to Travel Tuesday. Today we're going to be talking about culture shock. What it is, how to deal with it, things that I've experienced that I never thought would be culture shock. Before getting into the video, don't forget to subscribe and follow Body Abroad on all your favorite social media platforms. There are videos every Tuesday for travel and Saturday because there's nothing else to do. If you enjoy this video, give it a like and comment down below if you've ever been culture shocked. Well, let's get into the video. Let's talk about culture shock and 5 ways to deal with it. In order to talk about culture shock, we need to know the definition of it. So we're gonna head over to the most reliable source, Urban Dictionary, and see what it has to say. Culture shock, the shock of moving from one culture to another, often associated with laws, tradition, food, and general lifestyle choices. The example is pretty funny, so I'm gonna read it. So, we know what culture shock is, and even the most adventurous person feels some sort of culture shock here or there. I consider myself a very open-minded, very willing to explore.
The wilderness must be explored!
And understand other people's perspectives, but I have felt culture shock. The most common way you can feel culture shocked is obviously the language. If you do not speak the language of where you are visiting or traveling or living, you're gonna feel lost and you're gonna have a hard time and you don't even know how to ask for the bathroom and it's just very stressful. But there are some things that you wouldn't think are culture shock exactly. Here is a super relevant example that happened not too long ago. I was in the orientation for the program that I was supposed to be in. Coronavirus. It was basically people talking about like their favorite foods or something like that, and this girl of Eastern Asian descent said, "Oh, I like sushi." We all love sushi, like it's good. But this college professor, so we do know that this person had a higher education, said, "Oh, of course you like sushi, like look at her." A lot of people were like, that's a very insensitive comment and borderline racist. And the professor honestly didn't know what they did wrong, because maybe it's just a way of expressing, maybe it's just ignorance that people haven't been taught that, so those types of comments are sensitive. But it has to do with culture, with how they were brought up, with the language that they use. They really didn't see the importance of these distinctions and this language that could affect the other person. So that can be culture shock as well, because you're not prepared for maybe some sort of discrimination or maybe some sort of expressions that you weren't used to. And that's very important to note as culture shock. I've felt culture shock a couple of times, especially when you're arriving in a country that's very different. The first day is obviously very, like, you're kind of finding your way around everything. But I remember the first time I felt culture shock was in France. I went to Paris for a study abroad and I didn't know any French. I took French for 2 years, but my teacher really just motivated me because she really didn't understand students and their struggles. I really didn't understand French and I wanted to go and learn a little bit more French. And when I couldn't even ask where the bathroom was, I really felt culture shock. I think I have a video of it.
Llegué a Francia. No entiendo a nadie. I'm very overwhelmed.
It's okay to feel culture shocked, but don't think that the culture you're in is gonna adapt to you. You have to adapt to it. So how to deal with culture shock? I want to talk about 5 things. Number 1, I think, is you need to be open-minded. If you're the type of person that travels and expects everyone to adapt to you, you're gonna have culture shock everywhere and you're probably gonna struggle and come off as really rude. So you have to be open-minded. What does this entail? It entails that you might come across people who think very, very differently than you, and you have to respect it. If it's anything to do with like race, discrimination or anything, that's just wrong. But you have to respect people and how they think. If there's a language barrier, don't expect everyone to adapt to you. And there were some times where in Brazil, I would speak English rather than trying to adapt to Portuguese, because I knew that the person spoke English. I didn't do it on purpose, I just did it because it made me feel comfortable and I feel like I can communicate in a more effective way. You also need to be willing to engage in what you're living in, because if not, you're not gonna have the full experience. So be open-minded in that sort of sense. I think it'll help you out a lot. Number 2, you should do before traveling, and it's research how the country is like, how the culture is like, etc. Because that way you can minimize some of the shock and shookness, especially if you go to a very different country. You get to know what language they speak, very important, how the culture is, things of that sort that can help you navigate around. How their socioeconomic status is also very important and can determine how people act. So do some research, orient yourself a little bit regarding where you're going and what you're going to be exposed to. It can help you a lot in the long run. The third thing I recommend is trying to understand. This goes along with being open-minded, obviously, but you can be open-minded and still not understand. Try to understand where the person is coming from, especially if they did something that in your book and in your culture it's wrong. Sort of like the story that I said about the professor saying to the Asian girl, oh, of course you like sushi. Like, she didn't mean it like that. She didn't even know that that was a thing. When I was in Brazil, my friend that was with me was white, blonde with blue eyes, and I look sort of Brazilian. Squint your eyes or something. But people were telling me, like, don't feel offended if people come up to my friend more than me. And I did see it at some times. I tried to understand that maybe she depicted the American image that a lot of these students had, and I had similar hair, not a white complexion, not with blue eyes, like not the America that obviously Hollywood movies sell. I'm not saying that sometimes everything is right, but try to understand where they're coming from. Try to understand what kind of education people are getting. Try to understand how the media works. That's super important. Just try to understand, because they might do something that is wrong in your book, but they didn't do it with the intention of it being wrong. Do you understand? Number 4, I think, is also super important, and it's go in with a positive attitude, because if you from day one are,
oh, I don't know the language, I can't talk to anyone, I don't really like the food here, this and that,
then you're probably gonna have a really bad time adapting to where you're going. Try and be with a positive attitude. Try to say, hey, I'm going to have the opportunity to learn a new language, like one-on-one, with it being exposed to me 24/7. Like, you don't have that every day. Also, try to tell yourself, I'm gonna give things chances. Like, if you don't like something, then you don't have to try it again, but at least give it a chance. We're talking about abroad. You will probably not have this unique experience again. You will probably meet awesome people who you can like communicate with and maybe visit in the future. Think of all the positives rather than having a negative mindset, and it will definitely help you shook that shock. The last thing that I want to mention that I think really helped me adapt is to remind myself, why did I go there? There are times where you're gonna want to go home if you're there a long time, and it's okay to feel homesick. But I try to remind myself, okay, why did I come here? I came here, for example, New York, I came for an education. Egypt, I came here because it was a free trip. Was it the best? No, but I went there and I met amazing people that I talk to this day. Brazil, I loved it, didn't work out, but why did I go there? Because I had the opportunity to at least go there. It makes me look back at me at home saying, oh, I can't wait for this, I can't wait for that, because it's something I looked forward to. If it's not going how you expect it to go, you can change your plans, there's nothing wrong with that, but always remind yourself why you went there, probably how excited you were, and things are going to be okay. You're going to be able to adapt. Culture shock does not last a long time, in my opinion. Like, unless you don't want to adapt, I try to remind myself why I'm there in the first place. I think that's the quirkiest but best thing that I can say. I don't know if that even made sense, but I hope it did. That is it for this Travel Tuesday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and follow Bodhi About on all your favorite social media platforms. Like this video, comment down below. What are your tips for culture shock? Have you ever been culture shocked? And I will see you guys Saturday for a random video. Bye!